Welcome to The Hook,
where music and art come together.
with the people that created it. I'm Johni.
I'm Jess.
You're on The Hook. And we're sitting down with guitarist, songwriter, and performer Willie Williams. Willie blends country, blues, and Southern jam rock into a sound that feels both rooted and fresh. His vocals carry a Carolina twang while echoes of Memphis soul, J.J. Cale, and the Allman Brothers. They weave through all his arrangements. A powerful live performer and thoughtful songwriter, Willie's guitar playing carries the emotion of blues, the sophistication of jazz, and the grit of rock and roll. He has toured with Great Southern, the band led by the legendary Dickie Betts, continuing the musical tradition of the Allman Brothers. After spending 2 decades in corporate America, Willie made the leap to pursue music full-time, bringing years of life experience into songs that are honest, grounded, and deeply human. He's also shared the stage with artists like Lee Roy Parnell, who described Willie as a force to be reckoned with. Willie Williams, you're on The Hook.
Willie, you spent about 20 years in the corporate world with the kind of classic day job, but at the same time, you were playing guitar, performing, and now you're pursuing a solo career, which is a huge leap. A lot of people dream about that, but never take it. What finally made you say, it's all right by me to do this full time?
Yeah, it'll be 4 years next month that I've been full-time music. When you know, and I had done the corporate thing for 20 years. And just to be more specific, I was in the insurance world. I was in the property casualty insurance world. I was an underwriter, which is a tough place to be for a creative person. For creative souls really have no place in spreadsheets and Word docs and hundreds of emails a day. I felt it was very stifling to my personal creativity, but I did it for a long time because I loved my family and I felt, responsible to raise them and provide for them. And I didn't graduate college. So, it's not like I had an engineering degree to fall back on or, something like that. And insurance is a field where you can get into it without any education, really. You can sort of dive in from the ground level and work your way up, bootstraps, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I did. And I got to where I was, had a decent career, decent income, and I was proud that I could support my family. But after 20 years of that, I had enough. And I said, if I don't do something related to my music, maybe it was a midlife crisis. I don't know. Right about the time I turned 40, I thought, if I don't do something with my music, one day I'm going to be 75, 80 years old. I'm going to look back and I'm going to say, why didn't I do this? I'm going to have major regrets. And I didn't want to be that person, that bitter old man at 70, 75 years old and look back and say, why didn't I try this?
There's an old black man in a wheelchair on the corner of 9th and Main. He got a paper bag and a cardboard sign. He's asking for your change. He's missing a leg on his left side. Said he lost it in Vietnam. Got American flag from the VA, but he got the shaft from Uncle Sam, and it's a goddamn shame. The way we do our fellow man, it's a goddamn shame. And it's easier to stick your head down in the sand. The world's going to hell, you might just as well hang your head and cry. It's a goddamn shame. There's a teenage girl on a Greyhound. She's too scared to cry. But that nice young man on the internet seemed like he would never tell a lie. So they met up at the hotel, first drink she'd ever had. And she can't remember what happened next, and now she misses her mama bad, and it's a goddamn shame. The way we do our fellow man, and it's a goddamn shame. it's easier to stick your head down in the sand. The world's gone to hell, you might just as well hang your head and cry. It's a goddamn shame. Yeah, it sure is. There's a brown man hammering on a rooftop, sweating out all he's got. Making about $55 a day, and Lord knows that ain't a lot. He keeps his head on a swivel for the ICE. He's never felt so alone. But his wife's real sick, and they need that money that he's been sending home, and it's a goddamn shame. The way we do our fellow man, and it's a goddamn shame. And it's easier to stick your head down in the sand. The world's going to hell, you might just as well hang your head and cry. It's a goddamn shame. The world's going to hell, you might just as well hang your head and cry. It's a goddamn shame.
I was at the corner of Belvedere and Main downtown. And
Okay.
The first verse is absolutely a true story. I had just had lunch with a dear friend of mine, my buddy Eric Heiberg, who was the original keyboard player in the Robin Thompson band, and was having lunch with Eric down there. He lives down that way, down toward Rockets, and I was coming home, and for whatever reason, I decided to just drive through the fan. I was at the corner of Belvedere and Main, and I looked. There was this homeless gentleman on the corner, and he was wearing a Vietnam jacket, and sure enough, he was missing a leg, and he had his entire service detail written out on a piece of cardboard, like where he had been dropped in Vietnam and what years he had served, like what Marine Corps detachment he had been with, and all this. And it was insane. I looked to my left, and there's all this VCU money, and to my right, here's the fucking Commonwealth Club, all these rich people. And I'm like, there's all this money. And then this guy is sitting here in this just absolutely shameful state. Like, this is insane. So I rolled down my window, and I can't remember how much money I had in my pocket, but it was all my change from lunch, like 20-something bucks. I just gave him everything that I had. I was like, God bless you, man. And I think I even said, like, I'm sorry. And I was so pissed off. I wrote, that's another one that just fell out of the air, fell out of the ether. And I think by the time I got home, I think I'd written the whole song. I was very, very fortunate that I had a wife who was extremely supportive, loving, understanding, kind, willing to take one for the team and, go back to work, because she had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. And I think part of it was just I was just so miserable. I was impossible to live with.
Right. Right. And it was sucking your soul.
It was, yeah. And she'll probably say that too. I mean, she would if she were here, she would admit that I'm a much, much happier person now. I was in a dark place. When you're just constant, it's just the constant stress of the corporate thing. You did the corporate thing, right, Jess? I mean, so where I'm coming from with that. And like the constant stress of that, plus it's just a field that just bores you to death and stifles you. Thanks to my wife, who was willing to go back to her job at the state so that we could have health insurance for our kids. I knew I could do music and still make decent money. I had crunched the numbers. Okay, if I do 4 gigs a week, 5 gigs a week, crunching numbers is what I did in my day job. I knew how to do that. Talk about like nerd geek stuff. Like I wrote out a business plan. I made a spreadsheet. Okay, this is how many gigs a year I have to play. At Sports Page or at JJ's or whatever to make this work. God bless her, she went for it. Here we are. I think that first year I did like 180 gigs. Playing fewer gigs these days just because, some of those first gigs, I would take them for no money. Just let me put my tip jar out. I mean, just to get in the door. Hey, look, let me prove to you that I can play and that I can sing and that I can maybe bring some people in and sell some beer for you guys. Whatever. Let me put my tip jar out. I'll do the first one for free. And it got to where, you build it, and it's first, nobody comes to see you. Maybe the second time you get 2 people. Maybe the next time you get 4 people. Now I'm really, really blessed where I can play like a local venue like Hardywood and maybe get 50, 60 people out on a Friday night. I don't have to play as many gigs as I used to because, I'm making a little more money on each gig now. So that's nice. I'm not having to just full on grind it like I was 5 years ago when I was really starting to get this thing started. Yeah, that's that's sort of the nickel tour of how it all started.
When you were doing insurance full on, did you have the hair or did that come later?
I grew the hair out when I was 14 and had it all through high school, all through like my early 23, something like that. When I went to work for my first insurance job is when I cut it.
That should have told you right there.
Yeah.
You weren't heading in the right direction.
I already knew. It's just,
what you
I didn't.
do.
You do what you got to do
for your family.
You do what you got to do. Yeah. And it's funny because I was just talking to my buddy Chris about a few days ago, and he was like, "Man, I'm so happy for you and where you're at in your life right now." He's like, "I remember hanging out with you, 10, 15 years ago and seeing you like, in suits with short hair and like, starched collar, ties." He's like, "I don't know how you did it. That wasn't you. That's not my buddy Willie that I knew." He's like, "That was some guy who was really taking one for the team." I don't take a single day for granted right now. I'm extremely blessed and grateful and thankful for my wife, my family, like everything that the stars have lined up to allow me to do this. I wake up every morning now instead of like moaning and groaning going, I gotta go to work. I gotta, clock in. But now I wake up thinking, what do I get to do today? Yeah, I got to work hard. Yeah, I spent all day doing all kinds of promo stuff. I've, worked 7 hours before I got here with you guys, but it was all stuff that I wanted to do. As you know, when you're doing stuff that you want to do, time just flies. It flies. For me, that was like, that's an aha moment because when the time is flying, when you're working hard and the time is flying, that's probably a pretty good sign that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I was lucky to get out and play, once every 2 or 3 months, but it was enough. I'll use like the stove analogy. It's enough to keep the pilot light lit. That spark, I never lost that spark. And all throughout that period, I would still practice guitar a lot. I had a YouTube channel in like maybe 2010-ish where I was doing like online lessons, on YouTube. And it was just a way for me to like stay musical and stay sort of engaged. Even if I couldn't get out and gig in front of people, it was like something to do. And I would find like making these videos or practicing guitar, like you said, Jess, the time just clicks by. I mean, I'd be editing something on Final Cut and I was thinking it was 5 minutes and it was like 4 hours. Like where did that time go? Oh, it flew by because I was doing something that I love to do.
God, that's not come up at all. And it is the best advice for just humans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and here's the irony though, like where I was miserable, right? Crunching numbers. I've got a buddy down in Florida who's still a dear friend of mine from my insurance days. That's his happy place. Like he geeks out on like analytics and crunching numbers. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing makes that dude happier than like creating a pivot table in Excel. And that is like fucking water torture for me, right? Like that I would rather be waterboarded than to have to try to make a pivot table in Excel. But like for him, that's where he gets energized. And that's when he's doing that. And he's, trying to do all this predictive analytics shit. Time flies by for him like it does for me when I'm playing guitar. We're all wired differently, right? It could be maybe your thing is cooking. Maybe your thing is golf. Maybe his thing is microbiology. You don't know. You don't know until you get in the thick of it. Sorry, I'm getting animated on this.
We love it.
I'm passionate about it. I mean, I get passionate about this sort of thing. Yeah.
Because you are basically walking around just like a skeleton going through the motions robotically if you don't find it. And I think the majority of people don't.
I think you're right. That's tragic.
It is tragic.
It's tragic. There are so many people just going through life, just sort of phoning it in every day.
That would be a great song.
Yeah, I've touched on it in certain songs. Steve Bassett and I wrote a song called Living the Dream. Not exactly.
It's more on the positive slant.
Yes. Yeah. But it definitely touches on that. Find your heart.
Really excited to talk about your album called Trouble Follows Me. The title track alone, I believe it was written by
David Mowry of
Yeah.
Philadelphia. He was a wonderful songwriter.
Evidently, it hit you because you named your whole album after that song.
I will say, one of the things that I had done during my, let's call it the missing years, the dark period when I was doing the day job grind, is I've got a dear friend who now lives in Philly. He was actually living in Boston and California at the time, named Dan Gage, who plays the harmonica. And he's one of the greatest living blues harmonica players on planet Earth. He's a dear, dear friend. Matter of fact, he's going to be sitting in with Skydog this Saturday at the Broadberry. Dan had been involved in this thing called the Shenandoah River Song Fest, which took place every May up in Luray, which is no longer a thing. It was put on by this wonderful cat named Pops Walker, now left this mortal coil and gone on into the ether. But Pops was a wonderful man and really, really interesting guy. And he put on this festival every year. I went, I think, 3 or maybe 4 years, and it was something I looked forward to every May. And Pops was really, really good at tracking down singer-songwriters, eclectic musicians, folks that were off the beaten path a little bit. And that's how I met the Mowrys, David and his son Adrian. They've got a band called Boku Blue. I met them probably around 2015 or so, and they played that song in their live set, and I bought a copy of their record. I drove home from Luray, and I listened to that record the entire way home. I was floored. The songwriting was just incredible, and that song in particular, Trouble Follows Me, it just really stuck with me, and I remember saying, I am going to record this song someday. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't even have a band, but someday I'm going to record that song. I love the lyric, I love the sentiment of that song, I love the sort of ethereal melody. It's so haunting. And, when it came time to cut the record, I said, I really want to include that song. It's the only cover on the album. It's the only song I didn't write on the album. And I think it's probably my favorite song on the record, or ties for favorite. And I was really, really happy with how it came out. And when we were looking for a title, it just jumped out. The album just kind of named itself. Dylan Akers and I, who's a great photographer here in town, we went out to go shoot the cover photo for the record. As soon as I saw the photo that he took of me on the railroad tracks with the old Gibson guitar, I said, "There, that's it. I mean, that's the cover of the record, and that's the title."
Isn't it wild how when you put something out into the universe like that, though, it just circles back?
It's serendipity, and the more you look for it, the more it shows up. Steve Bassett and Cornell Jones came in and did the background vocals on that. And at the end, and there's this call and response. I say, "Trouble follows me." And then Steve and Cornell go, "Follow me." And I told him, I said, I want to make it like a Blind Boys of Alabama kind of thing. And Steve knew instantly. He's like, I got you, baby. I got you. Him and Cornell went and they laid down and they overdubbed themselves like, 6 or 8 times. It sounds like a whole chorus doing that call and response. And it's probably my favorite moment on the record.
So that's only 2 people?
Yeah, that's just Steve. It's
really
just Steve
cool.
and Cornell.
Yeah, now that is very cool.
It sounds like a whole men's choir.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Steve, and they're covering all the parts from like the high tenor all the way to the low bass. I mean, it's just Cornell, he's like in the basement on that, and it's so cool. It's just, I think that's my favorite. It's certainly the most intimate moment on the record, for sure. It's like the most vulnerable piece. When you're making something like this, you can't be afraid to be vulnerable. You got to just throw it all out there.
I think that was the song where I heard a little Lyle Lovett in your
I
voice,
love Lyle.
Right?
I just got to see Lyle. I did the Sandy Beaches cruise this year. I also play from time to time with Lee Roy Parnell. The past 3 years, he's taken me out on the Sandy Beaches cruise. It used to be the Delbert McClinton and Friends Sandy Beaches cruise. And then Delbert, retired and sold the brand to Star Vista Productions. So now Delbert's name is no longer on it, but it's still that Delbert family. A lot of roots, a lot of blues, a lot of R&B. It's just such a great lineup. So I get to go do that with Leroy every year. And Lyle was one of the headliners this year. I had never seen Lyle.
I just saw him this last time.
See him with the large band?
Yes.
Yeah. So
amazing.
So I saw this was the acoustic band, and he was very clear. He's like, "This is not the large band," and I'm like, "Well, it's still larger than any band I've ever had. Still like 8 people up there."
He's so personable.
Oh, he's great. He is a hero for sure. And
I heard some of that in you.
I love Lyle, and not just his singing and his songwriting, which obviously is legendary, but his showmanship is incredible. Like, he is a master showman, knows how to read the crowd, knows exactly when to make banter, crack a joke, his wry, like dry sense of humor, cracking jokes with the crowd, the comedic mastery of like George Carlin. For me, it was like a case study in how to put on a live show with a band. I mean, I'm back there like taking notes, like, okay, oh, I see. Okay.
It's
beautiful. And he, like me, he's kind of a slight guy too. He's not very big, right? But he's just like this commanding presence, which is so cool. Another Asleep at the Wheel was also there, which is a great Western swing band from Texas. They have been old buddies with Lyle. They all came up through the same honky tonks and roadhouses. Cool. And Ray Benson, who is the leader of Asleep at the Wheel, and Ray, he's like 6'7". He's a monster of a guy. Gets another 6 inches on top of that from the Stetson that he wears. I mean, he's just a huge guy. He's got this big Billy Gibbons ZZ Top beard. And he comes up there standing next to Lyle, and it's like David and Goliath. They had cut a song together. Lyle invited Ray to come up and sing that song that they had done on the record together. And so Ray came up, and this is in the theater of the boat. Leroy's up like in the front row watching it, having a ball. And, when I'm watching this go down, and it's like David and Goliath. Like I said, Lyle is like, he's like 5'6", right? He might be shorter than me. Yep. But he's still got this command of the crowd. Like, it's not about physical stature.
Well, think about Prince.
Look at Prince. Yeah. Look at Prince. That's what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with physical size. It's something you can't put your finger on. Some performers just have that thing and you can't describe it, but I know it when I see it.
I think it's magic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question about Every Day. It was written about your wife. My husband hasn't written me a song yet, so I'm just curious.
Justin.
In the early 2000s, before I went in the insurance business, after I had dropped out of college, I worked a bunch of different jobs. I did some crazy stuff. So I was actually on my way to get my journeyman's card as an electrical contractor. And then I got laid off from that. And then I went to work in a warehouse, drove a forklift for a little bit. I was actually driving a produce truck at the time I wrote that song. I think I wrote that song in 2002. And I was running a route from Elliston, Virginia, which is where the warehouse was located, down to Greensboro. And I don't know if you've ever driven from Roanoke to Greensboro on Route 52, but it is not for the faint of heart. Twisty, curvy, ups and downs. I mean, it's a classic mountain 4-lane highway. Lots of wrecks. And I used to stop for lunch. I'd stop the truck, and I think I got a Wendy's burger or something, right?
You think you got a Frosty?
It's possible. I do like a good chocolate fry. Oh, not the vanilla Frosty.
No, forget vanilla.
Boring.
None of us are vanilla.
I'm a Coca-Cola man. But anyway, I was just riding down the road, and I was thinking about my wife. I'd only been married a couple years at that point. And that melody for Every Day, which is, She's My Brown Hair, Blue-Eyed Angel, it just popped into my head. On some little 4-lane highways, they have these little waysides you can pull over. So I pulled over. I think I wrote that whole song in about 15 minutes on a Wendy's bag.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Did you save the bag?
I was just going to ask that.
I don't have the bag.
Oh, man.
I wish
you
I
could have
still
framed
had
that
it.
for.
You don't know how many times I have wished I still had that bag. It may have been a napkin, to be fair. I don't remember, but it was something related to Wendy's. I remember that.
Well, it will be forever preserved on this podcast that happened. So even though if we don't have the actual bag.
The best songs, we don't write them. Leroy likes to say, I didn't write it. The big man wrote it. I was just holding the pen. And
that's gorgeous.
That's the way I feel about it. Like, I saw Neil Sedaka just died, and I watched the CBS Sunday Morning, and they did this piece, and he was talking about how he feels like a conduit. The songs are out there in the ether somewhere. I think the gift is not the ability to write the song. I think the gift is having the antenna up so that you can plug into the ether. I really think that those songs, I mean, this sounds maybe corny or new age or whatever, but I really think there is music in the cosmos floating around out there. And some of us are tuned into it and some of us are not. I could sit down right now and try to write you a song, and it may be total shit. It never fails. Like when I try to write a song deliberately, okay, I'm going to wake up and at 10 a.m. I'm going to write for 2 hours. That works very, very rarely, but for most of the time, that doesn't work. The good ones, I feel like they're gifts. I have tuned into some frequency in the cosmos that is sending me melodies, lyrics, feel, whatever. I know that sounds corny, but that's how every day came together.
I love it because
Like-
you're not distracted by spreadsheets anymore. You're actually open to being able to receive it.
Literally fell out of the sky. I remember, and this has happened more than once, I'm writing as fast as I can write, and it feels like taking dictation because the words come so fast. I don't feel like I'm right. It's coming from my head. I know it's not coming from my head. And I've heard Bob Dylan talk about this too.
Well, and the fact that you had to literally pull over, like it was coming to you and you had to pull over to receive it.
That's the muse. I always answer when my kids call or when my wife calls, I always answer, you know, and it's like when the songwriting muse calls, I always answer. I never say no because I find that the more you say yes, the more often she'll come back. Sometimes I'm just like, I can't deal with this right now. I got to roll over and go back to sleep. You go back to sleep, and then I may not get any inspiration for 90 days.
You rejected it. You're getting punished.
I mean,
Don't do that
maybe.
again.
Yeah.
who knows? So this song is called The Rambler's Prayer, and I have not recorded this yet, and I'm going to get around to that very soon. But I'm going to send this out to all of the hobos that are still out there riding the rails, all the legendary cats that did that, the Rambler, Colossus of Rhodes, Bozo Texino, all those guys, Freight Bandit. This is for you guys. This is called The Rambler's Prayer.
Stuck again in Kansas City, waiting for a train to ride, dreaming about a hobo's heaven and sunny skies. This old rail yard's mighty lonesome. Nary a friend can I find. Just greed and cold and industry, but it's all mine. I hope I die where magnolias blooming. I hope they lay me down near a blackberry vine. I wanna be warm when I fly to glory. I hope I die in the summertime. It ain't easy being the rambler. Just can't seem to rest my mind. Sometimes I get to thinking about another place, another time. You know I take my medicine when it's freezing cold outside. 2 feet of snow in Argentina, but I feel fine. I hope I die where magnolias blooming. I hope they lay me down near a blackberry vine. Wanna be warm when I fly to glory. I hope I die in the summertime. I wanna go see my granddaddy. I wanna fish that pier again. getting tired of all this suffering in a world of sin. I hope I die where magnolias blooming. I hope they lay me down near a blackberry vine. I wanna be warm when I fly to glory, and I hope I die in the summertime. Yeah, I wanna fly in the sunny Southland, and I hope I die in the summertime. I hope I die in the summertime.
Wow.
That is
so beautiful.
gorgeous.
I kind of want that on my gravestone.
Yeah. Oh, that is gorgeous.
So my dad was a sheriff in Montana
Okay.
for years.
I like where this is going.
Right.
You got me swinging right now. This is cool.
So him and John Walsh, my dad, one of his cases was featured on America's Most Wanted. So he got to know John Walsh really well. At one point, they were just sitting around having coffee, and John told him about a period of time where he just rode the trains for like a year.
John Walsh?
Yes.
Huh.
Really?
And I can't remember the timing, if it was after Adam disappeared or what that was about, but I just remember my dad telling me the story and saying, I always wished that I had just done that. No responsibilities, just kind of seeing where you end up. So it's fascinating to me that you wrote that song, because I haven't really even thought of that in years. But
You gotta watch that film, Who is Bozo Texino by Bill Daniel. It's on YouTube. The folks that are out there like riding the rails, they get this unfair stigma of, they're drug addicts, they're ne'er-do-wells, they're criminals, I'm sure there's some of that. But the folks they interview in this film, these are cats that have been out there doing it for decades, and they're thoughtful, they're intelligent, they are very deliberately living their lives this way. My son is a switchman for Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. So he sees these guys a lot. And he's the one that turned me on to this film. He's like, Dad, you got to watch this. He's like, this is amazing. This is like, these are the guys that we see like sneaking in and out of the yard and stuff. One of the most powerful documentaries I've ever seen. It's so good. You guys out there in podcast land, please listen to it. Watch it. It's great.
You toured with Great Southern, continuing the musical legacy of the Allman Brothers. And I did hear a lot of Allman Brothers influence in your album. What was that experience like?
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. So, Dickie Betts had come off the road in the late teens, 2018, 19 or something like that. He had suffered some really serious health setbacks. Lee Roy Parnell, who's been a dear friend of mine for a long time, called me. I'll never forget, I was at a gig, and my phone rang during sound check. It was Leroy. I'm like, I want to take this. I said, hey man, I'm at a sound check right now. I can't really talk. Can I call you back? And he's like, well, you better, because this might be the most important phone call of your life. And I said, okay, you got my attention. So, I couldn't wait to get through that gig and call him back. So I called him back, and he said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but Dickie is putting Great Southern back together with all the guys that were in the band when it broke up, and he has chosen me to be, the front man, and we need a number 2 guitar. He's like, and I can't think of anybody I'd rather have out there as my wingman than you, because you know this catalog of music so well. You know Dickie Betts' music like the back of your hand. And Dickie's, he's been one of my heroes since I was 14, 15 years old. And so this was the call that you always dream about getting, and like manna from heaven. Like, are you serious? Like, I'm going to get to be in an actual band put together by one of the Allman Brothers? Like, that's insane. Sure enough, yeah. And he's like, well, come out to Nashville, crash with me for a week, stay out here. We'll work this stuff up. So that's what I did. I went out to Leroy's house and stayed for, 5 or 6 days, just stayed in the guest bedroom, and we would get up not that early, not at Leroy's house. have a bunch of coffee and just sit down and started going through this music like from the ground up, like figuring out who's going to play what, who's doing this part, who's doing that harmony line. And we hit the road. Maybe a month or so after that, we left out of Connecticut. The first tour, we left out of Connecticut, and we did an East Coast thing. We did like the city winery tour, and we played all the city wineries, I think, east of the Mississippi. It was fabulous. I mean, being out on the road with those guys who had been with Dickie and been around Dickie, you know, and of course having Lee Roy out at the helm of this thing.
Musicians talk about the difference between the magic on stage and the reality of life on the road.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm curious what that looks like for you.
I think about this a lot. Got a working title called Smoke and Mirrors about that. And it's about exactly what you're talking about, how it's plastic. To a certain extent, what we do on stage is fake. I mean, there's a certain degree of showmanship. Every touring musician has a little bit of P.T. Barnum, Carney Barker, Huckster. If you're good at it and you care, it's a show.
Yeah.
People are coming to see you. They're not coming to a political debate or a lecture or church. They are coming to forget about the shitty work week they had. They are coming to forget about the fact that their marriage is falling apart. They're coming to go into this fantasy land for a couple hours. And that's on you to take them out of whatever shittiness is happening in their world and transport them to this magical place for a couple hours. I think that is an honor and an incredible responsibility. These people have paid good money for tickets to come see you do that. I got to chat with a great guitar player in Nashville named Brian Sutton one time. I was like, man, how do you do that? You're just hammering. He's like, you know, before every single show I go out, I tell myself, this may be my last gig, and I don't want my last gig to be shitty. That has stuck with me ever since then. I'll tell you where it hits home, though, Jess. It's a great question. I love this topic, and I love this question. There's a Jackson Browne song called The Loadout. There's a line in the song where he's like, but now all I hear now is the sound of slamming doors and folding chairs, and that's a sound they'll never know. He's talking about the audience because the audience has all gone out. The magic show is over. The smoke and mirrors is gone. The light show is off. The fog is gone. Now you just got a bunch of union guys in black shirts on stage winding cables, taking down rigging, you know, putting amps back in cases, doing all this stuff that is very not sexy. It's how the sausage is made. You just go to the store and you buy your sausage. God knows you don't want to see how they make that shit. You don't. You don't want to smell the inside of the bus. Where your favorite rock stars have been cruising. You don't want to smell that. That's the reality of touring and being on the road. It's not glamorous. It's such a dichotomy between the realities of being on the road. It's grueling. I'm friends with some of the guys in the band Carbon Leaf, and they've been doing this. Those guys, I mean, you want to add road stories. Holy shit. Talk to Carter Gravett. I mean, he's been doing this for 20 years. It's like Jackson Browne said, though, the only time that seems so short, too short, is the time we get to play. That's what makes it all worth it. 2 hours or whatever on stage. That's like Jackson Browne said, we remember why we came. It's not we have to do this. We get to do this.
So the one thing that really jumped out at me about this record, you just do so much from Southern rock to even the Dead. I heard a little Lyle Lovett in there, some jazz, all these awesome musicians you have with you.
Probably 70% Nashville friends and then 30% Richmond folks. It was an amazing treat to work with that level of musicians on this record. A song just by itself, sung and performed on like piano or acoustic guitar or whatever. To me, that's like the skeleton. That's like the bones of the work. It takes a team. It takes a village. It takes a producer. It takes a great studio. It takes amazing players who have this killer intuition, who know when to play what, and maybe more importantly, know when not to play. You know, I was extremely blessed to be able to have the cast of characters on this record that we did.
Well, they believed in you.
Oh, they were just showing up for the pay.
It shows. It sounds wonderful. You have to pick up the album.
It's on vinyl. It's on CD. If you have a 2008 Nissan Sentra with a CD player, I can hook you up with a CD. It's all at williewilliamsmusic.com. You can go to my merch page and you can check out.
Trouble follows me.
Trouble follows me, and I will take my narrow ass down to the post office and mail you one myself.
Nice.
Yes.
Let's jump into a speed round, and then we've got to jump into our little surprise. Willie's got to cook dinner tonight.
What are we making, by the way?
Tonight we have Greek salmon with steamed broccoli.
And he cooks.
I can read a recipe like a motherfucker, let me tell you what.
The ladies are drooling.
Yes, very much.
All right. So speed round is just your instinctive answer to each question. Don't think about it too much. Just boom, boom.
Don't
All
be
right.
scared.
Don't be scared. All right. Ready, set. First guitar you ever played?
A Montgomery Ward $25 piece of shit.
Love that. Studio recording or live stage?
Live, every time.
Yeah.
First album you fell in love with?
Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore East.
Artist you'd love to open for?
I love it.
Oh, beautiful answer.
First concert?
This one always cracks me up.
Well, Bon Jovi. But that was not really. I was in 6th grade, you know. The first concert that I went to, like, kind of on my own accord, was George Thorogood and the Delaware Destroyers, and they rocked the house. It was fucking awesome.
What was yours, Johnny?
Oh my gosh, that's what I was going to say. A lot of people answer this question. It's embarrassing. Sean Cassidy.
Wow. Were you 4?
No. Yes, my dad was working with somebody that had tickets or whatever, and I think I was only like,
I mean, you had
maybe
to be
7.
young. That was like, that
like
was
6 or 7. That was my first concert.
I was Pat Benatar, and it was a date.
That's
and he
a
gave me
good
diamonds.
one.
I broke up with him 2 days later.
Oh my goodness.
I wasn't mean. I wrote it out. All right. If you could play one legendary venue, what would it be?
I love this question.
Probably the Beacon Theater in New York.
That would
I'm
not have
aiming
popped in my
really.
head.
I wouldn't have said, Madison Square Garden, because it's just like that ship probably sailed.
Put it out there. When you put it out there, things are happening.
Maybe you're right. Yeah. Let's go with that. MSG. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I love it. Blues, country, or rock if you had to choose just one?
Country.
Nice.
That was quick. Favorite place you've ever performed?
San Juan, Puerto Rico, on the cruise with Lee Roy.
Best live show you've ever seen?
Either Wynton Marsalis Quintet in Roanoke was unbelievable. And I also saw Tony Rice with the David Grisman Quintet reunion at Floyd Fest, the second Floyd Fest. Probably that. Grisman with Rice was probably it.
That's after my heart right there.
I'm an old hippie.
Yes. So you mentioned a love of radio, which Johnny and I connect with because we both came from radio. I was on the ad sales side and did some voice work, and Johnny was a DJ in the Nags Head area. Where did the interest in radio or love for radio start for you?
I was born in South Carolina. I lived in South Carolina for the first 5 years of my life. And I can remember vividly sitting in my dad's lap in the recliner with the family hi-fi on and listening to, "You got the Wolfman, baby." Wolfman Jack was still on the air when I was, 3-4 years old. And I never forget hearing that come through the speakers, and it like touched my soul or something. And I'm like, that is the coolest shit I have ever heard. That guy is magic.
So knowing that we all have, kind of this love for radio and apparently Wolfman Jack, Johnny on a whim this morning reached out to Wolfman Jack's son,
Todd Weston Smith.
And explained that, we had just started this podcast and you were coming on, and asked him if we could share some clips from back in the day. So
even just a blip.
Just a blip. Okay, so then he wrote back and said, "I can do you one better. I'm going to send you a clip, and I don't want y'all to listen to it. I want you to just play it for the first time in the middle of your interview." So we have not listened to it.
Oh, no way.
But he said it's one of his favorite
Yes, he
moments
says it's one of the
his dad.
funniest ones that he ever did.
Oh, let's go.
And he owns
let's
it.
go.
Let's do this.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I'd like to move something.
Mm-hmm. To where?
Well, I'd like to, first, it's an animal. It's a very large moose.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have facilities for moving a moose, say, from New York to Los Angeles?
Just a moment, please.
Yes.
Hello, may I help you?
Hello, who is this?
This is Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi.
I was asking the girl, you see, I want to move a moose from New York to Los Angeles. And I was wondering if you had the facilities to haul a live moose for me.
A live moose?
Yes.
No, sir, we don't.
See you, baby. Pardon me, dear?
Railway Express.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Could you say that again, please?
Railway Express.
Does Railway Express do that kind of thing?
No. I've never...
Ain't you folks ever moved any mooses before?
No, I haven't moved a moose lately.
My grace, this moose is called Rufus the Moose.
Rufus the Moose.
That's right. Easy, Rufus. Well, you saying you don't have no facilities to move a moose?
No, sir, we don't.
Well, I certainly thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Oh my God.
Wolfman.
Oh,
Oh, it's
all
so
right,
awesome.
official thank
Right
you,
from his
Todd.
son. Thank you, Todd Weston.
Thank you, Todd. That's incredible, man. Thank you,
Amazing.
brother.
Wow.
That made my
Isn't
day.
that funny?
I'm gonna have to go tonight and like YouTube and pull up a bunch of old Wolfman Jack clips.
I know. I was blown away when he responded. I'm like, Jess, you
That's-
have to read it.
This has been really fun.
Awesome,
Thanks for having me. Skydog, which is a tribute to the Allman Brothers Band, which I'm proud to play with. Based here in Richmond, so many people go, I can't believe there's an Allman Brothers tribute band here in Richmond. I did not know that. There is, and we're playing this Saturday. In fact, our normal keyboard player, Joey, his wife is having a baby, so he will not be joining us. And we've got Steve Bassett sitting in with us.
Wow. Okay.
Cover all the organ duties. Steve's going to bring his old Bertha Hammond organ out, play the keys, and like I said, my buddy Dan is coming down to play harmonica, coming down from Philly to do that. And we're going to play the Live at Fillmore East record, which happens to be my favorite all-time album, all the way from start to finish. So that's pretty cool. I will be with my full band at River Rock this year on May 16th. I'll be playing, I think I've got the 3 to 4 p.m. time slot at Dominion River Rock. And this year, what's really cool, you guys probably know they're renovating Browns Island right now. So it's kind of like completely bulldozed. So all the River Rock music is going to be at the new amphitheater, which is really cool. I've never played a stage that big. So,
Nice.
And Steve Bassett will be with me on that. So with the full band. So that'll be pretty fun. And then May 23rd, I'll have the full band at Flatiron Crossroads in Gloucester. And then just stay tuned for some really cool solo stuff coming up this summer. I haven't announced it yet, so I can't say it yet. But
Okay.
I do have some neat stuff booked.
Well,
Hey.
the next time you're going to do a solo thing, you should come back on here and kind of update us what's going on.
I could do that.
All right, one more last question. If you could go back to the moment when you decided to leave all the corporate behind and pursue music full time, what would you tell that version of yourself?
Buckle up.
Such a good answer. Awesome, Willie. Thank you for being on the hook.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm Johni.
I'm Jess.
You're on the hook.
Make sure to follow us on social media at Johni and Jess on TikTok, and you can find The Hook with Johni and Jess on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
You can listen to all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeart,
Or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can submit to be on the show by visiting our website and filling out the Be on the Hook form. Just head to JohnnyandJess.com. That's JohnnyandJess.com. That's where you'll find everything you need to get started. This has been Jess,
and Johni.
reminding you,
Every artist has a story.
and every story has a hook.
You're on the hook with Johni and Jess. Real conversations with musicians, artists, and creatives.
If you're a musician, artist, or creative, your website shouldn't look like an afterthought.
Your brand is your stage, and your website is often the first place people decide if you're the real deal.
River City Consulting builds websites specifically for creatives, musicians, performers, and artists who need an online presence that matches their talent.
They're also the official website agency for the Hook podcast.
Learn more at rivercityconsulting.com and use promo code THEHOOK for serious savings.
The Hook podcast.